Welcome back to Introduction to iOS Application Development at SSFS. This is the last video in our clock project, and we've got things pretty much good. Our clock works fine. We just have a couple of aesthetic things to take care of. Before we start, it's important to understand that Apple has created a set of iOS Human Interface Guidelines, or HIG. I'm going to go to the website for a second, and in this document, they describe best practices for how to lay out your app, how to make it look, how things should be arranged, and so on. And if you want your application to be accepted in the App Store, it is a very important document to kind of read and understand. One of the best practices they have is that the status bar should not be hidden. To maintain a kind of a consistent view across all applications, you really should try to leave the status bar open on your app. But in this case, for a clock app that we have, it doesn't make sense to actually have the status bar there. So we're actually going to hide it. We could actually override that in this view controller, but we can actually also override it application wide through the configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command 1 to get to our project navigator. And I'm going to go down to supporting files and this info.plist, which is basically a configuration file for our app. And you can see it's got things like names, versions, and so on. Again, lots of configuration items. What we're going to do is we are actually going to add a couple of elements so that the status bar doesn't show up. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to add a row to our plist. And the row I'm going to add is status bar is initially hidden. Hit enter. And it's a Boolean. And I'm going to make it yes. So it's going to initially hide the status bar. And then the other thing I'm going to add one more row. I'm going to do view controller based status bar appearance. And I will make that no. So let's go ahead and go back to our main storyboard. Let's run this. Run our clock app. And you can see now there is no status bar where we saw one in previous videos. So now instead of having two clocks, we just see our one clock, which is better for this app. Okay, let's go back. So that's one aesthetic thing taken care of. Well, actually, let me go ahead and start that up again. The other thing we need to fix and make sure it works is when the phone or iPad is rotated. So I'm going to hit the command and the right arrow and rotate it. Well, that looks pretty good. Okay. I'm going to rotate it again. So that's what it would be if the app was upside. So if I held my phone upside down, I notice that it doesn't rotate, and that does not look correct. So we need to fix that. So let's see, both portrait orientations are fine. Right side up is fine. But upside down is not good. So let's go ahead and go back to our Xcode, stop the app from running. And we're going to look at the supported interface orientations method. So let's open up our, you can see the API reference documentation is very important. Supported, interface orientations. And you can see that it does it through what's called an interface orientation mask. And you can set preferred orientations, a temp rotation, so on. So it's a pretty powerful class. So we're going to go to our view controller, and we're going to override the supported interface orientations. So override function supported interface orientations, interface UI interface orientation mask, and we're going to return UI interface orientation mask dot all. What that means is this is telling that our view controller is going to support all orientations, whereas before it was not supporting the upside down orientation. There was no rotation there. So now it is going to support all the different orientations. We want to make sure of this. If I want to go to the project navigator, I'm going to go up to the project itself. Also notice here the device orientation. I want to make sure that upside down is checked. When I do it here, when I do it at the project level, that overrides it for every view controller in the project. Doing it at the view controller level only overrides it for this view controller. So what essentially I've done is overridden it twice. Project level does it for all files here, but I can also do it as a view controller level if I choose. Okay, let's go ahead and run that one more time. Let's rotate it. We know that works. And now when it's upside down, it works correctly. So you can see the time shows, no matter how I rotate it, it's always showing correctly. So now we've created a pretty simple but a functional clock. We've learned about notifications and timers. And one of the things you can think about is what are some other ways we might want to improve that clock to either make it run better or look nicer. So that's it for the clock project. I hope you can think of some ways to make your app look even better.